Good afternoon. Welcome to this February 22nd meeting of the Early Childhood Subcommittee of the House Ways and Means Committee. On our agenda for today is 4 bills. We are discussing and potentially voting on HB 208, HB 336, and then just discussing HB 903 and HB 1076. So we will start with HB 208, which, colleagues, if you remember, has to do with when fines can't be charged to minors by library systems. We have been working with our stakeholders in the library community over the set of amendments that were distributed today, which I think reflect all of the discussions we had when this bill was last up in the subcommittee a few weeks ago. And I see that our state librarian is on the call with us today. And Ms. Padilla, can you just confirm for us the amendments, where we're at now, or are the library systems okay with at this point?
Yes, we are in agreement with the amendments as worked out again just this morning. Thank you, Alistair Johnson, for all your hard work on this. We appreciate it. And thank you to the committee for giving us time to work with their stakeholders to make sure that we have everything correct. But yes, MSLA fully approves the bill with the proposed amendments.
Wonderful. And thank you. And we appreciate all of the back and forth. So, colleagues, basically where the bill is at, and I believe the reprint version was what was distributed today, basically just makes very clear that fines can't be charged to a minor or for library materials intended for children or teens. So that could include materials that are checked out by, say, a parent or guardian or older sibling on a minor's behalf. Or even if an adult, I suppose, is reading materials that are intended for kids. But it is prohibiting fees on a variety of circumstances on children's materials and directly to children. Is there any questions about the amendments? Okay, not seeing any. Is there a motion on the amendments?
Move the amendments, Madam Chair.
Second.
Okay, they've been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendments, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, those pass unanimously. And let me note that Delegate Long is excused today from our subcommittee meeting for health reasons. Okay, a motion on the bill as amended, please.
Move the bill. So second.
All right, well, I was going to say, we'll take that as a motion and as a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Wonderful. HB 208 passes unanimously. Again, thank you to the librarians for all of your help and back and forth on this one.
Thank you so much.
So next up is HB 336. This was the bill we heard several weeks ago from Delegate Forbes that will help to better advertise the ABLE program, which is for individuals or families who have a person in their life, typically, I think a young person up to age 26 who has some significant disabilities or health issues, and allows for them to save money for that person's future in kind of a tax advantage way. The program already exists. The bill simply is using IEP and 504 meetings as a way to distribute information to families that may be eligible for this program. So the reprint that was distributed today just includes the amendments that were put forward by the sponsor, and I'll note the state treasurer is in support of the amendments too. Any questions about the amendments?
If I could, Madam Chair. I just want to add in, I think that the sponsor points out that this is a program where there's money, but it's undersubscribed. And she's trying hard. If we're going to offer a program, we should try to offer it with fidelity. So, yeah.
Thank you, Delegate Eversole. Any other questions or discussion on the amendments? And I should say, actually, before we vote on anything, that this bill, colleagues might recall, did allude to that there might be a fiscal note, which, again, we're not actually, the cost of the materials the state treasurer's office can do with existing resources, but the point of the bill is to increase participation in the program, which might actually cost the state something. Alistair, we did check in with the Appropriations Committee, and they have cleared the bill. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. All right, seeing no further discussion, is there a motion on the amendments, please?
Move the amendments favorable.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor of the amendments, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, the amendments pass unanimously or adopted unanimously. Any further discussion? Otherwise, we'd entertain a motion.
Motion to move.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of the bill, please say aye or raise your hand. Okay, HB 336 also gets a favorable report unanimously. So that is it for our voting today. The two other bills that we have on our agenda are just to discuss. And in fact, these are bills that we just heard yesterday in that very long day of hearings. So starting with HB 903, which is our chair's bill. I believe many of us are co-sponsors on this bill in regarding access to attorneys for families of students who have special needs and special education accommodations. Just wanted to see today if there was any discussion on this bill. And Alistair, I think this is one we need to wait on appropriations for. Is that right? Because of the fiscal note? I see him nodding.
That's correct. Yes,
Yeah.
sorry.
Any questions or discussion for this bill?
Just a question, Madam Chair.
Yes.
What we think we cannot vote today because we have to wait for the appropriations and those. Okay, just want to confirm. Thank you.
Yes, that's right. Okay, well, there's no discussion on this one, so we will table this one for a future meeting once we have gotten clarification from appropriations. And Alistair, sorry, was there something else I'm supposed to bring up on this one?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you don't have to necessarily discuss it today, but during testimony, Mr. Wallum suggested that the Maryland Volunteer Legal System Service, I forget what they're called exactly, be tasked with developing a training and defining who is an advocate, which it seemed like everyone was in favor of, but just thought
Oh,
it might.
yes. Thank you for raising that. Any conversation on that bit? And Mr. Williams is here to answer questions. Okay. Seeing no conversation probably means we're good with that, and we might get some clarifying amendments drafted for our next meeting when we are able to take up the bill again. Okay, see some nodding heads, so I think we're good there. All right, last bill for the day is HB 1076. This is the bill from Delegate Roberts, blind and visually impaired students, textbook equity. I do know that we are joined today by a representative from MSDE in case there are questions or any conversation on this bill. Delegate Ebersol, I see you unmuted.
Yeah, well, MSD has, in a conversation, has expressed some concerns about the logistics of this bill, about the flow of money. So with your permission, if Ms. Eileen would like to weigh in from the State Department, I would like to hear what she has.
Certainly.
Thank you.
And thank you, members of the subcommittee, for an opportunity to speak to you today. So yes, I first want to start off by saying that, State Superintendent Dr. Wright is very, very supportive conceptually of what the intention of this bill is seeking to do, which is to make sure that there is access to and, policies in place, guidelines in place to make sure that students who have special education services needs, specifically those who are blind and visually impaired, have access to the textbooks that they need. With that being said, we just wanted to share some information about a policy that the State Department currently has in place to make sure that students and families who, whether they have grievances or would like to provide information to the state concerning their denial of access to these textbooks or other resources, that they do have a formal process to do that. And with that being said, we want to make sure that we're passing policy that is needed and will intentionally provide a solution, as opposed to pushing forward a legislation that is potentially already has a solution in place. So just want to outline for you very quickly, right now, the State Department of Education, there is a formal grievance process. The information is posted on the website. Should there be a parent, family, student who, for some reason, is not being provided the textbook from the LEAs, there's a couple ways that this could be done. The family and the parents have to submit a request to the LEAs to purchase this textbook. Then the LEAs would have to submit that request, move it upwards. MIRC and others would then make sure that the textbook is provided to that student. We heard in the testimony, the hearing yesterday, there were some folks who provided testimony that there is a delay and or students are not receiving their textbooks. However, Delegate Hornberger brought up a very, very good point and asked, how many students, how many families are experiencing this, and if this is a big issue, are the families suing the county? And so that question wasn't necessarily answered. We are trying to find out what the numbers are as far as if there's any unfulfilled requests. Right now, we're told that there are 0 unfulfilled requests as far as textbooks that need to be given to students. That does not mean, however, that families are concerned about the timeline in which they receive these textbooks. So with that being said, the State Department would like to suggest that there is some changes. If there are to be some changes, that those changes are around the accountability. So we have a couple of solutions and suggestions, whether that involves putting out some technical assistance guidelines for the LEAs to follow, including a timeline for when they must respond to these requests, and or amend. We currently have an MOU in place with the LEAs to make sure that there is this agreement and that students are being provided the textbooks. We do think it's important to have an accountability measure in there that may look like some sort of tracking record so that the state will be aware of how many textbooks are in need for the students and how many are unfulfilled. Currently there is no tracking mechanism, and we believe that that is the right solution moving forward, as opposed to jumping ahead without data around a large swath of textbooks that are unfulfilled. Like I said, right now, we're told that there are 0 unfulfilled, and so we want to make sure we are providing the right solution.
Thank you for that information. Delegate Grossman.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. I just had a question because I think what I heard yesterday was maybe not a denial of access to textbooks, but a really significant lag in time from request to receipt, which was then creating barriers for those students to learn in real time. So I don't know if there is also a resolution to that or a workaround that those families should be kind of exploring now, but could you just give maybe a little information on that? I would appreciate it.
Absolutely, Delegate. So part of the solution, I believe, would be that we actually put, whether that's we put this in statute and or in the MOU and or in guidelines, there should be some sort of timeline in which the LEA should be expected to be able to produce those textbooks. What we know now is that in the absence of a full, complete textbook and being able to get that from the publisher, for some reason, there may be a holdup on their side. The LEAs are currently providing some sort of alternative. However, that is not equal to what the other students are receiving, and that is what the issue is. And so what we do want to make sure is clear is that the State Department agrees that the students do deserve to have the full and complete textbook, and that in the absence of that textbook, LEAs should not be using an alternative measure permanently. And that, so an example of what that might look like is printing off copies of the pages that are needed and translating those in Braille, as opposed to giving the student the full textbook. While that might be a temporary solution, that should absolutely not be a permanent solution, especially given the fact that the federal government does provide the state federal funds to provide these textbooks to the students, and we do give those funds to the LEAs to do so.
Thank you.
Delegate Wims.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the answers you just gave. I did want to ask another question. Do we have an idea throughout the state how many students we're talking about that may be affected as of today?
Yes. So right now there's at least 3, I would say approximately 3 students. I actually think that's the maximum. I just checked this data right before coming on here. There's 3 students who currently have a modified version of a textbook. So they don't have the complete textbook. They have some sort of modified version of the instructional material. But so far it's just 3 students.
Okay. And just to follow up, Madam Chair, if I may, like we saw the young lady who's a student, her father was a football player, I think, former player. So she's one of those 3?
Yes, that she would be one of those 3.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, colleagues, for those questions, and others should feel free to jump in. I guess I'm just wondering if anyone on this call can speak to, I guess, the textbook market more broadly. So in my previous professional life, I worked in science policy, and an issue we were also often tracking at the nonprofit I worked at had to do with just kind of, textbook ordering and how certain states, especially more populous states, really are the drivers of textbook content. And we were looking at that from kind of a particular point of view about the teaching of evolution in schools. But my recollection is like California, Texas, Florida really drive the market for what every other state has access to in terms of buying textbooks. So I'm wondering if any of the stakeholders on the call can just speak to, like, do publishers provide digital copies of books? Is that something that actually exists in the market? And are any other states pursuing that at this point? Because I do worry a little bit about Maryland's ability, given just where we rank in the grand order of 50 states, about our ability to require publishers to provide that. And I realize this might be very outside the expertise of the folks we have on the call today. Okay, I don't see anybody jumping in, so we'll keep doing some research on that front. Any other questions from subcommittee members? Or requests for information that we can follow up on? All right, that might be it for today then. So this bill, we will continue the conversations on that. And perhaps, Alistair, we can get another meeting set up with MSDE to just talk through a little bit more about what their amendments might look like. And then we'll bring this bill back to the subcommittee for further conversation on this one. All right, well, thank you all. That ends our work for today.